Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, as you can see this time, an Atomiswave. So this was an arcade PCB produced by the company Sammy. Now what's particularly interesting about this is, well, it's a couple of things. It takes a cartridge here. It's based on the Dreamcast, you know, the console that came from Sega there. So there was already a relationship to the arcade, if you're aware, with the Dreamcast. The Naomi was based on the Dreamcast hardware. Well, the Atomiswave followed suit here. Now, this was produced around the time that SNK had folded, kind of thing. I think the software division took all the assets and things and continued. Was it SNK Playmore? That's how the company continued. So they targeted this platform for some of their games. Now you'll know that I'm a big SNK fan. I've got lots of Neo Geo repair videos on my channel. I've got all the different MVS models bar one or two and a few of the rarer boards, but I've got most of the MVS models. I've got an AES and I've got a Neo CD, and you've seen me do mods and upgrades, and I've got flashcards and things for some of those things, and SD drive, optical emulators and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Neo Geo stuff. I do like arcade stuff. I might get one or two more arcade boards moving forward. I've got to be careful what I spend my money on, obviously, and some of these things can be very expensive. Now this worked out really cheap. This was like £40, but there are a couple of faults. It's got a jammer edge here. If you're familiar with the Neo Geo, you'll recognise that instantly. It's exactly the same thing. The pinout is identical. I think the controllers on this use 5 buttons, whereas the Neo Geo uses 4. But I think it's not a problem, because I think the way the buttons are mapped, the select and start, or one of them, gets mapped to the 5th button. So we should be okay using the Neo Geo controller and a super gun. A super gun is something that literally, you know, it's an adapter. There's no guns involved. It's an adapter. Plugs in there, and it provides a connector for your ATX power, so you can use an ATX power supply to power it, and controller ports and a SCART socket and stuff. But you can always modify this itself, you know, fit some sockets and things on there for controllers and video cable and all that, but I'm not going to do that. So the other thing that makes this particularly interesting, besides the fact it's based on the Dreamcast, and besides the fact SNK put some of their later games to this, Metal Slug 6 is one of them. I might get a bootleg version of that, I think. The originals are very expensive. This cart here was about £80 or £90, I think, which is a lot of money. But yeah, interesting points, outputs VGA. So that is really cool, just like the Dreamcast did. But you can also, I think, by switching the dip switches here, you can switch it into 15 kilohertz, 15 point whatever kilohertz mode, which should mean that the SCART cable will work with it as well. But I've got a VGA cable connected to the TV. We could probably try that and connect that up directly. So you've got a volume thing there for the sound. I think the audio comes out of this 8-pin connector here, along with serial, and that's like a dedicated serial, like link connector, I think. I could be wrong. You can see this one's got an expansion I/O cartridge. Now these things are modular. This sort of, I think if I just pull that clip there you go, it pulls out. So they clip in from the top. So this would be required, I think, to add more controller options. So like for the light gun games, you plug some cables in here, and if there's a PCB comes off, then you can plug a light gun in, or a steering wheel, etc. I think one of them may have had a fishing rod or something, I'm not sure, could be wrong. So if I just clip that back on, yeah, I felt like I broke it then, but I don't think so. So cartridge just goes in there like that. Again, it clips into position. You can squeeze the tabs on the side there, you can see they bend in a little bit to release it. So I think this is an original SNK one. I've seen a number of videos over the years on how you identify fakes and genuine ones. One of the obvious ones is the label in the corner there. You can see it's rounded. The fakes tend not to be. The serial number is a clue. You'll see lots of fakes using exactly the same serial number, and of course the Atomiswave logo there is a clue as well. And obviously if you get inside this, I don't want to disturb the Atomiswave things there. They look genuine. It could be fake, but obviously the PCB itself will hold a clue. Generally you tend to find the original ones that came from Sammy are really clean, tidy PCBs. The fakes tend to have the part numbers wiped off the top of the chip, you know, ground off, flux everywhere, and they just look really bodgy. So anyway, we might have a look at that. We might go inside that at some point. I'm not sure what this is for over here. I think that, coming back to that, I think that's for the modem. I think you can connect a modem up. So the port on the side here, I'm honestly not sure about at this stage. I can look at the service manual for this and work that out later perhaps. But in general, you can see this is in excellent condition. It's almost like, you know, this is sort of looks like a console, doesn't it? Apart from this metal base on the bottom of it. You can see we've got a fan in the back there to keep things nice and cool. I can see some caps there, you see that, SMD caps. So the issues with this, controller port problems, and that's quite common from what I understand. So as I said earlier, you've got 5 buttons for each player. There's going to be some clamping diodes on each of the button inputs here, and I think those diodes are short. That is the problem. So in advance of this, I looked at some photos of the PCB and measured, you know, got the right components, effectively ordered some components. They're equivalents, but they should do the job. So I'm waiting for those diodes to arrive, but in the meantime I thought we could just plug this in, test it, see what's going on with it, see which directions and things are affected, and then we'll take it to pieces, have a look inside. The other problem with this is the audio. Apparently the audio is very, very quiet, so we saw those capacitors through the little gap there on the base. It might need some new capacitors, that's what I'm hoping. Fingers crossed that's the problem with the audio. But when we come to the diodes, I think we can remove them in advance of the other ones arriving, and that should get the controllers working, because they are just literally clamping the transient protection, protecting from spikes, ESD spikes and things from touches and from things not being wired properly. The worst case is if it's not those diodes, it's going to be a custom chip. Well, we can't do anything if that's the case, because I think some of the stuff on here may be BGA mounted. I could be wrong. But trying to get the spares and things could be near impossible unless you buy another working unit or something, one that's semi-working. Anyway, let's hope it's the diodes. So I've got it precariously sat on a box here. You can see this is the Super Gun. It's a PCB, as I say, with a SCART connector, ATX power comes in, and I've got a Neo Geo controller plugged in there. We just want to literally plug it onto the jammer edge there like that. And if I just sort of carefully, hang on, somehow try and balance this, you can see I'm having difficulty here just because the SCART cable is super short, but yeah, it should balance on there. So I pointed you at the screen, and if we switch it on, it's obviously important you get that, oh look at that, they get the jammer connector on the right way though, you could kill the board. Now the fact that the video is doubled up here shows me that it's in 30 odd kilohertz. I forget the exact frequency. It's not 15 point whatever. So there is a dip switch, I think, to switch that over. Nevertheless, we've got colour bars there. I think that's what will happen when you've not got a cartridge in, actually. So, tell you what, let's just switch that off. So looking at the operator's manual for this, I think we need to switch that dip switch there up. So if I just get my little probe in there, there we go. I think that should make it compatible with my TV. We can try the VGA cable later. I just want to just go with what I've got here for the moment. There we go. That looks normal now, doesn't it? It's not doubling up. ROM cartridge includes fatal error. Well, there is no ROM cartridge in there, so that's probably a normal error, actually. So we've got the same thing again. We've got like a checkerboard thing, and then we're going to get colour bars. Yeah, so that looks alright. Switch it off again, and we'll fit this Neo Wave cartridge here. There we go. So all being well, it should go into that game, I think. That's if the game works. Black screen, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. Is it broke? I'm not sure. Let's just give it a minute, maybe. Oh yeah, now loading. It's always worrying when you get black screens like that. Why could they not put now loading as soon as it changed to a black screen? That would have made more sense. I think that's working, isn't it? Now I've not got speakers connected up at the moment, so we're going to get no sound. I'm going to focus on the sound issue afterwards. I mean, we'll have a look at the caps and things when we go into the look at the motherboard in a minute. But the first thing I want to do is, well, A, make sure it's working, and I think we've done that, and then try and get the control issue resolved. So in order to add a coin, I think I have to press the button on the jammer, the little, my super gun adapter. It's got a button I'll show you in a minute. So pressing that, the coin has been registered there. Let's try pressing the buttons of the controller. Start maybe. Yeah, look, start. I think started it. Pressing all the buttons here. Okay, so the start button seems to be doing something, and the D button. The other buttons aren't doing anything in the stage. I think the game's starting there. It's waiting for me to do something. There we go. It's weird without sound. Anyway, let's just see if the controller does anything. Yeah, so left is working. I can jump. I can crouch. I can move right. A's not doing anything, I don't think. B's not doing anything. So that might be the issue. C doesn't do anything. D does a kick. So I'm not sure whether C is used in this game. Let's try pressing start. Yeah, start does something. Start's one of the fourth buttons looking. Yeah, he does something when you press start. I don't think select does anything. Let's try that. Let's just wait for the next round to start. Oh no, select does something. Select does a kick there. Probably going to be a bit weird to play this on my arcade stick because some of the buttons are mapped really weirdly. What I could always do is get another super gun and do some mods to it to route those buttons accordingly. I'll probably do that because those super guns are only about £10 or £15 or something. Anyway, so I think the next thing we should do is put this in test mode, and looking at the operator's manual again, it's the other dip switch. So let's just set the other dip switch. Is it up or down? I don't know which way it goes now. Yeah, down, like that. Switch it back on again. So if that dip switch is working, that should take us into the service menu. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do much because you need the test button. Now the test button, I'm not sure where that's wired. Yeah, that worked. That's took us into the system menu. So directions don't do anything. Buttons don't seem to do anything. Oh, start does. So start goes up and down. At the bottom here it says select with test switch and then push server switch to enter. Yeah, we only got one switch. I could try holding the button, I guess. Let's try that, test mode. Oh yeah, that worked. So it's like tap it once to go up and down and hold it to select. So if we do, let's do a colour test. Yeah, that looks okay. It says push server switch to exit. You just have to hold it again. Yeah. So we've got crosshatch, not bothered about. AO test. Let's do that. That might be the controllers maybe. Oh, there we go. So you can see start works. That's select. So select is button 5. And then we've got A is doing nothing, but it's registering as on. Can you see that? So that explains when I was pressing A and B, we weren't getting anything. A and B are not working. C is working. D is working. Yeah. Let's try directions. Left, right, up, down. Yeah, so it just appeared to be shot 1 and shot 2. Oh, we got a problem over there as well. Can you see that? Shot 1 on the port 2 is registering as on at the moment, and there's nothing even connected there. So we've got 3 buttons there that are an issue. So let's take the cartridge out and then turn it upside down. Well, maybe I don't need it upside down. Yeah, the screws seem to be around the outsides here. I was expecting to need to unscrew something there, but that doesn't seem to be the case, does it? It looks like it's all of these screws around the shell, look. So let's remove those. I'll need to remove the IO cartridge as well, I think ahead. Let's just do that. Because I'm guessing that's going to restrict, make it harder to get the lid off. And obviously these screws here maybe as well, I think on the top. Let's do those now while I see them. Yeah, all those screws are the same length, that's good. So we did that one on the front, none on the sides. There's just the one on the back now. Now that one was slightly longer than the one on the other side. So I'll have to remember that longer one at the serial number. Does this just come off now, or yeah, there we go. I think that's it. So it looks like the next thing we need to do is remove these screws holding the shield on. It's a bit more involved than I thought it was going to be, tearing it down. I thought it'd just be the lid and then you'd see the board. I didn't realise there'd be a shield on there, so those are all the same size. To be fair, there are not too many screws, there's just the 4, I think, holding the shield on. Yeah, that one's longer again, longer screws at the back again. Or is this one going to be a short one again? Maybe it's got some of the wrong screws in it, this. Yeah, it's a short one again. I wonder if someone's messed these up. I think the longer ones for the outside and the smaller ones are for the inside. It's the fact that someone's been in this that's messed those around. So the shield might not come off here unless we do something with this. How's that even connected? I didn't disconnect that, did I? That was already disconnected, so someone hasn't connected that for some reason. That's a bit weird. Let's just see if we can squeeze those there. Do we need to pull that off? I'm not really sure how that comes off now. No, it's on the bottom metal there, isn't it? So, well, how does the... Yeah, I don't know if you can see this. It's a bit of a chicken and egg. It's like, in order to get the shield off, you need to move this out of the way. But in order to get this out of the way, you need to remove the shield. I don't know, I'm confused to say the least. I think what we need to do is pull this... I don't even know why someone's put that on there, if I'm honest. Oh, it's like Captain Tape that's gone weird. I think if we unscrew these... So, let's try and use the proper tool for the job here. That makes it a bit easier. Yeah, I'm guessing if we remove this from here, then it should come off. This is the only thing that's holding it onto the metalwork there. It's a stupid design though. That would be better if it wasn't, you know, part of this, I think. Now we should be able to squeeze, there we go, pull it out. So that's that. So that's literally just the volume pot and the connection there. Not sure what this is here. Oh, that's the fan. That's the fan, isn't it? Let's just disconnect the fan then. It's going through the shield. Is that going to come off? Yep, there we go. I'm not sure what this is here. There's like a yellow wire on top of that IC. Is that a factory mod? Maybe? I don't know. It's got some flux around here. Look, maybe it's had a repair in the past. So I think we need to access the other side of the board. These are electrolytic caps here, aren't they? So I'm going to need to inspect to make sure none of those have leaked, but you know, they kind of look like the Game Gear ones, those, don't they? I hope they're not the same dubious quality as the Game Gear ones. So we've got to remove yet more screws. I'm bound to get all these screws mixed up. Let me just film these. So yeah, that's got like a metric thread, not like the other ones that have gone through the case and the shielding and all that. These are different. And the same length again on that one. And the one back there. That one's a short one again. God, it's amazing how many different screws there are on this. And that one is going to be a short one again. Yep, short one. And then the board should come out, I'm not sure. Alright, so we need to do the same thing we did with the serial. I really don't like this design of having to remove these blooming things all the time. They're the same length as the other ones, so I can't mix those up. Is that going to be free now? No, what's holding it on? Oh, it's going to be thermal compound, isn't it? I think the problem that we have here now is this massive heatsink is going to be joined to the ICs with thermal compound, isn't it? That is a pain. Serious pain in the you-know-what. I really don't like prizing these things out, especially if those chips are BGA mounted. Right, that was a little bit stressful. All I did is I wobbled the board like that, left, right, as I was just gently pulling it a little bit away, and it detached from the heatsink. Okay there. So you can see a lovely IC there. Look how thin that IC is. Yeah, it's got Sega part number on it there. Got some NEC RAM here, NEC RAM here, another BGA IC there. There's kind of like an oil or something on this from where that heatsink was mounted. I'm tempted to not wipe that off because it's kind of like joining it on, unless something's leaked on there. I don't know, it could be some oils have leaked out the rubber thermal pad there. That might be what that is. My goodness, look at the pitch on that. That is fine soldering. But these are BGA mounted, so unless you were to, you know, preheat the underside of the board here with a IR heater and use a hood, you know, and heat with hot air, reflowing one of those would be an absolute nightmare. So it looks like we've got a real-time clock crystal there, perhaps. It might be a different crystal, different frequency. We've got the backup battery here. That looks like flash ROM, maybe for settings or something. Got a custom Sammy IC down here. Got another Sega chip under there, another RAM. Yeah, these two here are RAMs. Yeah, I just realised that's got an Hitachi logo there, and it's got SH4 on it. That's the SH4 CPU. So, yeah, they managed to consolidate things quite well on the Dreamcast, didn't they? There's only literally the CPU, a load of RAM and stuff, and whatever that Sega chip there is, and then that's going to be the main graphics and arbitration and all that sort of stuff, backbone of the system. So, I need to inspect around these caps. And they've got loads of caps around here, look. So I'll check those out. Ooh, look, that's disintegrated. Can you see that? It's burned. I'll put you on a macro in a minute. So that is one of the problems there. Maybe that one, that doesn't look so clever. If there was one for every single button, why have I only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I mean, alright, there are 5 pins on each, so there might be 2. So it might be 14 instead of 7 there. We'll remove that with some air and test it without it, I think. Right, so you're on macro now, you can see. Yeah, that has burned up. Hopefully it's not damaged the PCB there, like, you know, the traces and things. And they look alright. Oh, that one on the end, can you see that? The top of that looks bulged, I think. Yeah, so we'll get those 2 off there. So let's give this a go. I've added some flux around these here. I'm just going to pull my fan over here to extract the fumes. I just hope we don't lose the pads here, because this one in particular has charred totally, hasn't it? It has really gone up with explosive force. And of course these may well be glued down as well. That's going to add to complications, isn't it? It's moving now, I think. Okay, just get that off. Yeah, that's off. I'm not sure if the pads are alright there or not. Let's now do that one. This one seems better than the other one, in that it's just got a little bulge on top of it. It's not nuked like that one was. There we go, pads look alright there. So, that wasn't too difficult, was it? Let's just get these off. So, because these are transient voltage protectors, it will work without it. You just risk, you know, got to be careful regards ESD. You also need to ensure you get the jammer connector on the right way, and that's the answer, I think. You know, why have these failed like this? I think it's probably because someone connected up the jammer edge incorrectly at some point. Because how else would you get those failing like that? Unless the diode just failed on its own, shorted. That's a possibility, maybe. Yeah, you can see that one there looks super tidy. This one here, not so sure what's going on. Let's just get the braid on that. The caps look quite good on this, actually, the Rubicon ones, and I don't see any signs of leakage anywhere. We may have to remove this heatsink though, because I think this is the audio amplifier, it looks like it, and there's about 6 or 8 caps under there, so maybe some of those have baked. Anyway, we'll deal with one problem at a time here. Even if I have to reassemble it completely and then tear it back down again, I'm not that bothered. I just want to deal with this issue to start with. I don't think there's a pad there, you know. That's going to be interesting. So there you are on macro, so you can see there's a burn there as that component must have failed. You know, it's incinerated the board a little bit. Pads are all okay, but over here, can you see that pad is charred? We have, however, got this via here, so when we mount the replacement component here, it's going to mount between those 4 connections correctly, and then when the pin comes out here, we'll just need a very small piece of wire from here to here. That'll fix that. So that should be okay. The next thing I'm going to do is just test on diode tests on the multimeter to make sure we ain't got shorts on these other ones. So I'm not sure how those are wired at the moment. We'll check them later when the replacement ones arrive. I'll show you that, how to test those with a multimeter. But right now, I think I'm just going to get this back together and we'll go and retest it to see if the controller is now working. And bear in mind, we're at risk of damage there, but we should be alright as long as we don't touch the board and get some ESD on there, and as long as we don't get the jammer connector around the wrong way, it will be fine. Yeah, you can see that those are no longer registering, look. The shorts have gone. So left, right, up, down, A, B, C, D. Oh yes. That's a good sign. Select is button 5. Sweet. I'm just going to unplug that controller, test it in the other port. Left, right, up, down, A, B, C, D. Select, start. Yeah, so there we go. Controller issues resolved. So I've got one dodgy test speaker connected to this. I'm just going to switch it back into game mode instead of diagnostics. I'm thinking actually, if someone hadn't taken this to pieces, the volume would have been quiet. Oh, there it's working. The volume would have been quiet because that potentiometer was not connected, was it? Do you remember I said, I don't remember disconnecting that. It wasn't connected. That explains the sound issue. Yeah, listen. That's fine. That's low volume as well. I could go way louder than that. I'm not going to have it too loud because my wife's working at the moment. So yeah, that's working. Fantastic. There is no sound issue. So my replacement TVDs have arrived. Let me just see if I can capture this. The centre pin, you're not going to be able to see because I'm so close. You've got 3 on one side, 2 on the other. Where you've got 3, the centre pin is the common, and that is where the positive needs to go actually, not the negative. And if we measure from the centre pin to each of the 4 points, can you see we've got 6 something there, and again there, and the same there, and well, I have to swap these probes around. So let's get one of the new ones on there. You can see how small they are. They're really small now. In advance, I actually ordered the wrong ones. I'll show you the other ones later if I can find them. They're half the size of these actually. They're so small you can't hardly even see them. In fact, they're here. Look at those. Those are the ones that I thought I needed. It's not going to focus. Yeah, they're half the size of these ones here. The tiny little things. Anyway, the thing I'm not sure about here is voltages and things. These ones are rated at like 6.1 volts. It's not a Zener. It's just a normal diode. So I think provided you don't go over 6.1 volts, you're alright. Now it's a 3.3 volt device this, so I suspect 3.3 volts is used for the input. If it's not, if it's 5, then the voltage of 6.1 wouldn't be an issue. At the end of the day, they are the same though. They are TVD, ESD protection. Oh, I can't even get inside that. So you can just about see the meter there. If I put the positive probe in the centre pin of the side that's got 3, hang on a sec, try not to block the meter here, and we measure one of the corner points. You see that? 7, 4 something, hang on, there, and they're all like that. That one will be the same, I think. Get onto it. It's very difficult because they're so small. There you go, 750. I've confirmed that all 4 diodes measure that way. And we have our replacements down here. Put the positive in the centre point again. Oh, it's incredibly difficult. See that? 714, so it's a bit lower in terms of its forward switching voltage, but there's little in it. It's very, very close. So we should be okay. So I've now got 3 to fit back on. I need to fit the original one that I've just pulled off there that works, and our 2 replacements. Right, I can't see whether that's the right way. I think it is. I've turned the airflow down because otherwise it's just going to get blown off the board, and if I get it into approximately, oh God, it's easier said than done. Why is it sticking down here? if we get it to in approximately the right position, it should, in theory, suck itself onto the board when it gets to temperature there. I think it already has, actually. I mean, obviously, once it's on there, you could add a little bit of flux and then reflow over it, because the connections are exposed. But I think that's it. That's one back on. So after getting them on with hot air there, I've just added a bit of flux. I've got no solder on the tip, and I'm just going to bob into each of the connections here, and then inspect with some magnification. So that's one of the ones we replaced. The second one here is the one I just took off to measure it. Got to be careful I don't bridge to something I'm not supposed to be bridging to there. Yeah, checking with magnification is absolutely required here. And this is the one where we need to add a wire in a second, because its top connection is burnt off the board. Anyway, I'll give you a macro in a minute. I'm just going to stick the wire on. So just cleaning up, I'll show you up close in a sec. That wire was very hard to do, but it didn't take long, to be fair. It was just fiddly. I had to use magnification. There's no way you could do a wire like that without some decent magnification. I just curled it around a little bit. Anyway, that is looking good. Let's just get the flux off those. And those are looking good as well. I'm very pleased with the end result. That's fine. Right, and there we are on Super Macro. So you can see I literally just pulled it around to that wire there. So yeah, that's that done. This one went back on. This came off just to test it, and that's the other one that was replaced as well. So I think I'm happy with that. Let's reassemble it and give it a try. And the other thing to check here that I've also done, you've got some ferrite beads here. The connections, I don't know whether the supply rails or something go through these or the signals, but nevertheless the wires from those TBDs on the other side come up through here, and you've got 33 ohm resistor arrays here, and the resistors just go straight across. It's like 4 resistors in each. I've just checked those are all alright, and the ferrite beads are all conductive against. There's 4 of them in each of these arrays here. They go straight through. So the battery on these is an ML2020, so it's thinner than a CR2032, sort of the same rough, I think it's the same diameter, hence the 20 being the same. The battery is here, and if I measure the battery here, you can see 2.5 volts. I've got those around the wrong way, it should be that way, it's minus 2.5, yeah, 2.543 volts. Now that's after about 30 minutes of charge. When I was waiting for the diodes, it was about 2 or 3 weeks not being used, and it dropped down to about 1 volt. But bear in mind, when I tested it, I'd only tested it for maybe 30 minutes, so it's obviously lost some of its charge over that 2 or 3 weeks. But the very fact that after half an hour it's gradually climbed all the way up to 2.5 volts shows me that that battery's alright. So I'm going to continue to just use that, but you could replace that battery while you're there. Now I just found this from a bit of a search online. The left and right audio comes out here. Some people stick a pin header there. You could do that, and then you can disconnect and reconnect something. I might do that, I don't know. I could just solder straight on. It's very easy just to solder 2 wires straight on there, and the wire's just going to come out the back somewhere. I might just squeeze it out here where the jammer comes. I may even feed it under the board here and out of one of these cavities here, maybe cable tie it on or something, stop it, pulling off. But I just want a really short, like that long, wire out the back so that I can connect up an audio cable to this, connect to my TV. Or, on the jammer, what I might do is fit a fly lead on the underneath of the jammer with a stereo input that goes to the SCART output, and then I can just plug it into here and then get stereo audio through the TV. As far as I understand, this down here is kind of like line level, it's unamplified, so it might be quiet, it might be a bit too loud, I don't know, but that is how people are connecting these up to amplifiers and TVs. So I've tinned these up, I'm just going to shove them through there, you can see that. The yellow I'll join a longer way because it needs to go further across, I think, and heat shrink it. But anyway, I'm just going to push those through there like that, flip it over and solder on the other side. So I've scratched a bit of the solder mask off there, can you see that? I'm just going to add a little bit of solder and some flux. It will take a minute to bite because that will absorb tons of heat. There we go. Just got a little blob of solder on there, like that. And we'll pull that yellow across there if we can, and that's our ground. There we go. Just use a wet finger on that. There we go. So that is sufficient. We do need to make sure there's some sort of strain relief, because obviously if this is pulled, it's going to detach these things. But just flipping that over, you can see I've soldered it there. Yeah, there we go. I finally did it just between two of the little struts there. You can see that is dead tight. There's no way you're going to be able to pull that, but it's just long enough here to have a, let's say, a 3.5mm socket on the back, and it'll be fine. And it stands off here where the cable tie is as well, so that'll be fine. So with the screws, somebody totally messed them up. There's two like metric ones that go through the audio heatsink, you know, the audio amplifier heatsink, and then these little ones like this. These all hold the shield on. There's just enough for them to go in every position around the edge of the board here, so I know that's right. So we haven't got any missing there now, and they're all exactly the same. And then the slightly longer ones that look the same as those little ones, but they're not as long, those are the two that go on the lid, actually. Anyway, we'll just plug the fan back into there, pull the wire down, stick that little tape over there. We need to connect this back up again, so just push it onto its little stand there, connect it up with JST, and then carefully feed this over the edge and on. There we go. So I'm going to get all these back in now as well. I'll just fully reassemble it, and then we'll solder on the audio connector. I know the red is the right channel, white is the left channel, and yellow is ground. So as you can hear, the sound is coming from the TV, working perfectly in stereo. It's just a shame that fan's a bit loud. I might take it back to pieces and oil the bearings on that fan maybe. And the volume level's just right. That's the other thing here. It is line level. That's exactly how it would sound coming out of an Amiga or Mega Drive. That level, you know, level 20. So very pleased with that. So one small thing that needs to be done to this, I guess, just from a cosmetic point of view. Can you see this is a bit bent here? Yeah, so I'm just going to use some mole grips and literally just grip into this. That's generally all you need to do with something like this, and you can kind of manipulate it back. I can just bend that slightly like that. But that is largely straightened out compared to how it was. If you looked at it side on here before, it was bent in a number of places. That isn't too bad now. Let's give it a bit of a clean with some soapy water. There's some black marks and things here. I don't know whether those are going to come out. You could just use some IPA or plastic cleaner on it, but yeah, it doesn't really need much. Bear in mind it's probably been in a dirty environment, you know, inside an arcade cabinet for a decade or more. So I thought it was worth just showing you the replacement parts I used here. So I went with these ESDA, and then I think the first two digits there are the voltage. So I used 6.1 volts. You can get them, you can see the bottom of that table, or the top of that table there, 5.3 I think is the lowest they go down to. So you could argue that if it's using 3.3 volt logic on the inputs there, that you could still get a fault there, you know, because this is only going to protect up to 6.1 volts. And it says there, it says they clamp the voltage just above the logic level supply for positive transients and to a diode drop below ground for negative transients. So basically I think pin 2, the middle pin, is where you would connect ground. And then I think you have 4 of these in each one. In fact you do, it says they're quad. Yeah. So and it looks like the Zenas, aren't they? The Zenas, basically. So, you know, you'd have an input going to each one of those there. So I think on one of the chips, 2 of the inputs were probably faulty, and I think the other one was the one on player 2 or something like that. It's basically just clamping the signal there, so anything above, I think in this case 6.1 volts would just go straight to ground, and anything below ground would get straight to ground through the diode as well. And something that just crossed my mind is we could just measure the voltage actually. We could see what's there, because they're getting pulled to ground, these contacts, that's the way they work. So I might just go do that. Let's just go measure one of the voltages of one of the inputs and see what the voltage is. And if we measure one of the input pins here, this is one. You see that? 3.27 volts. So it is 3.3 volts. Let's just switch that off. So you could argue, a mistake here. The TVDs I've used, I think 6.1 volts, aren't they? So it's only going to protect where you get a situation where you've got more than a lot more than 3.31 volts. That may damage the device, but in general with ESD you're going to get way more than 6.1 volts. That is the idea, I think, in general. And if you believe the datasheet, I think that anything less than ground will protect against as well. So it's certainly going to protect in that aspect, regardless of the fact that we've got 3.3 volts there. So if you're going to order something like that yourself, maybe don't go with the ones I used, but honestly couldn't find anything suitable. Now I know it's 3.3 volts, I'm armed with that knowledge. I could go and find some better parts, but in terms of just protecting for reverse jammer connectivity, because this is the thing, when you flip this upside down, from what I remember, 12 volts goes straight into those pins there. I think wherever the 12 volt line is on here, it goes into the inputs, and that is probably what the issue was. But it could it could be that ESD was introduced into here. You touch this, you charged up, you touch that there, bang, you've got a problem. But again, if you've only got 6.1 volts, yeah, you could damage it, or less than 6.1 volts, you could damage it. But ESD, you tend to find it's in the hundreds or thousands of volts range. So it should be alright. It should be alright. It does work, no problems at all. And if I didn't make it clear, it goes without saying that the voltage level on those diodes, you want higher. You wouldn't want to go 3.3 volts, because then it's going to trip and it's going to short out and stop you getting a signal. So you do need to be higher than 3.3, and I think that is the issue. You may find that the ones that are originally on here from factory might be 5.1 volts or something like that, or 4 point something volts. But in any case, I'm happy with it. I'm sure it's fine. So it's really nice to add this to the collection. The cartridges are super expensive, super impossible to find. I was looking for a Metal Slug 6. You're looking at £500 for a Metal Slug 6 cartridge official. That's ridiculous. I may try and get a bootleg. You can get a bootleg for about $150-ish, roughly, which is still a lot of money, just for a blooming bootleg. There weren't that many games produced. I would say about 16 or 17. You've got things like, Metal Slug that I mentioned. You've got King of Fighters. There's another King of Fighters game that I forget the name of as well. Dolphin Blue, that's quite a popular game. Again, it's super expensive, so £400-500 to get hold of a copy of that. Knights of the Valor, which is kind of like, is it like Knights of the Round, a bit like the game there you get on CPS2. It's a similar sort of thing, but obviously it's it's 3D, because this is a 3D based system. It's like, say, it's based on the Dreamcast hardware. I think they were like half the amount the Naomi sold for, which kind of made them competitive in that sense, which is a bit weird, because obviously Sega have licensed it to Sammy, but Naomi obviously was what Sega were pushing out, so it's a bit of a strange business decision there. And of course you saw the SH4 processor on board there. That runs at 200 megahertz, just like it does in the Dreamcast, and it's got all the same graphical features of the Dreamcast. So you've got PowerVR2 running at 100 megahertz, and it gives you all the same things that provides in the Dreamcast, like alpha blending, bump mapping, fog, transparencies, trilinear filtering, anti-aliasing, etc. I'm not sure I pointed out where the sound chip was, but you've got an ARM7, so it's like a 32-bit RISC processor, basically. It's ARM7, and it provides 64 AD PCM sound channels. That's quite a nice spec for sound hardware. That runs at 45 megahertz. I pointed out some of the RAM when we had a look inside this earlier. I'm not sure where the work RAM is versus sound RAM and stuff and VRAM. You've got 16 meg of SD RAM, synchronous DRAM, which is exactly the same as the Dreamcast specs, but the graphics side of things, there's more RAM on this. You've got 16 megabytes of RAM, whereas I think on the Dreamcast it had 2, didn't it? Or was it 8? It was 8 on the Dreamcast. So it's got twice as much graphics RAM there, versus a Dreamcast. Now the RAM on the sound is where it gets a lot bigger. You know, on the Dreamcast you've got 2 megabytes of SD RAM again, and on here you've got 8 megabytes, so it's like 4 times the amount of sound RAM, which kind of makes sense because, you know, it's going to run from a cartridge, it's not running from a disc. It's a bit easier when you've got a disc, isn't it? You can spill things in and out of that RAM and sort of get away with things, but when you've got a cartridge, well, you can directly access from the cartridge, but it's probably encrypted. The stuff on here is probably encrypted. It probably doesn't stream straight to and from. It has to perhaps decrypt it and stuff and stick it in the RAM, you know, so it just makes sense to have more RAM. Now, I was right and I was wrong earlier on when I was talking about this port here. Yeah, this is for the serial, but it's not for the AWNet, you know, the modem connectivity. That's what the space here is for. You could get like a connectivity module that's got an RJ45 socket, and that would connect up to a modem. And I think ultimately that, let's say, I mentioned a second ago, AW.net was some sort of Atomiswave server where it would log high scores and things. So presumably, you know, the game had to support it. But yeah, you could have like, you know, a global high score table, which is quite an interesting idea. We will revisit this at some point because, like I say, I'm going to try and get a Metal Slug 6. I'm going to try and get a copy of Knights of Valor at some point as well. So yeah, we'll perhaps have a look at those when I get them. I might even tear the carts down and we can have a look at what a bootleg looks like inside. So I do hope you found the video interesting. If you would like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. I'll catch you in the next video.